it's really easy for me to quantify property. What is it going to take to replace a building or your contents? Property to me is very easy, and I'm able to talk to my clients about that. The big thing that they miss out on, Diedrich, and what's going to hurt them more than anything is their liability. Okay, most business owners they have their head wrapped around, what if a tornado comes through here? What if a fire happens? Do I have enough coverage on my building? Do I have enough coverage on my inventory and my contents, right?
Mhm.
And they should be concerned about that. They want to be insured right. But to me, that's the easy part. Where they lack education and knowledge because agents tend to kind of meander or tiptoe around it is liability. And that's, we ended 2019 with about 7.9 million in litigious events for our clients. So our clients, we had about 7.9 million in lawsuits.
Mm.
That's what it boils down to. One of them was 2 million, the other one was 3 million, and then a bunch of smaller ones. Okay, so we've turned into this really big litigious society. And I have seen so many policies that, it just says, hey, you've got $1 million worth of liability coverage, but it's just hasn't been explained to the client what they're covered for. Okay.
Mhm.
And every liability policy, we have to, as agents, we have to classify a business based on their operations. Every day I run across agents who have misclassified businesses. They're either charged too much or too little, and they get audited, and then now they have a huge bill they have to pay. I'm dealing with a client right now who's a contractor. He came to us. He's got an $80,000 audit. $80,000.
IRS?
No
Oh,
insurance.
insurance.
Yeah.
Wow.
A lot of commercial policies are auditable, be it on payroll or gross sales. I mean, I could dive down this rabbit hole as far as you want to go. My point is that I feel like the industry as a whole, the biggest disservice that we do to our clients is not go over liability. And so I encourage all business owners to sit down and have a face to face or a Zoom meeting like you and I are doing and really get down, in the nitty gritty of what they're actually covered for when it comes to liability. Because that, if they are sued, there are so many moving variables to any lawsuit out there, Diedrich. If you don't have a good, solid liability policy, because insurance companies can add all these little tiddly bit exclusions in there in the liability policy, okay?
Right.
And that's why you need your agent to go through that policy and tell you what you're covered for and what you're not covered for. Because that just, to me, that I don't see our industry doing that as well as they should be.
What does
And
liability cover on a commercial policy?
I can give you a couple of examples. So that every business generally has what I call a premises liability. Okay, so what is premises? Okay, well, it's think of the 911 address, your premises you occupy. If you look it up on PVA, it's your deed. What's your deeded property? What happens if you talked about it earlier? Let's say somebody goes on your premises, they're going up your driveway on your house, or they're on your business and they're on the sidewalk or on your property and they trip and fall.
Mhm.
Okay. What happens if you're a retail store like Home Depot and an employee leaves a rake out and somebody's just going along and they trip over the rake? We had a restaurant where an elderly individual tripped and fell in the bathroom and she hit her head on the sink in the bathroom and was concussed and had to go and by ambulance to the doctor's office or to the ER, and that ended up being about a $50,000 to $80,000 claim.
Wow.
So, I mean, that's just a premises because people can trip and fall. A person can trip over their own 2 feet, Diedrich, and sue the insured.
Mhm.
Okay. Now, let's look at a restaurant. What about the food you ingest? The food is being prepped. What happens if you get food poisoning?
Can you sue
And
for food poisoning?
I can sue you because I don't like you. I
Okay.
mean,
Doesn't mean you're gonna win. That's my grandpa
yeah,
used to always say that. He goes, "They can sue you for what they want. Doesn't mean they're gonna win."
exactly. I mean, these days. I mean, look at the state our country is in. I don't like something that you say. It's slander and everything else. So I'm going to sue you.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, that's why I'm so passionate about liability insurance, Diedrich, is because really, I mean, anything, anything, you can get sued for anything these days. But a restaurant, food poisoning, that's one thing. Or they serve something. If you say that you're gluten intolerant or you have a gluten allergy and they don't wear the white gloves and they don't separate the food on the griddle the way they're supposed to,
Mhm.
and then you have an allergic reaction,
You remember McDonald's had that issue where somebody spilled hot coffee and McDonald's had to go to on their coffee cups and redesign it and put this is hot.
You know what? That is a perfect example. And how many millions of dollars did that individual win?
She was
How
alive.
many millions?
I don't know. Let's see. Hold on. Let's
Yeah.
see.
Diedrich, I want you to remember something. And any business owner that's out there that's listening should understand this. The thought process behind accountability and responsibility is quite skewed these days. And I'm not trying to be negative or pessimistic, but as an agent, it's my job to reinforce those coverages for those clients to insulate them and protect them against people who would try to do them financial harm by taking advantage of them.
Mhm.
Okay. And there are people out there because the courts have allowed certain rulings when the client wasn't at fault, but they still would rule in their favor.
Yeah. It
So
says
we have to
in 1994, the coffee was 100 had up to 190-degree Fahrenheit near boiling point coffee. Looks like she died. Hold on. On No, that's not it. Never mind.
that no, that she had, I think, second and maybe third degree burns. I can't remember. That was before I got into insurance, but that was all over the news, as you can imagine. I thought she got a couple of million, perhaps.
More than that. Hold on a second. Let me see. She sued McDonald's. Oh, she got $3 million in punitive damages for the burn she suffered, and she died in 2014. She was in 1992. She was 79 years old.
I did a wow, I did I did a presentation for some of our agents about a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago on commercial auto, and it revolved around the trucking industry. And I need to get my facts straight here, Diedrich. So everybody who's listening or watching this video, please give me a little bit of latitude because I'm trying to pull from my memory, which isn't always the best. Um, but anyway, one of the largest litigious events as far as trucking is concerned, I think it was around 28. It actually happened in 2014, and it shored up around 2017 or 2018. It was this trucking company down in Texas, and they were on one of those two or four, on a 4-lane highway that's got a big median, concrete median in the middle. Okay, just like I-65. Okay,
Mhm.
or I-24. And so what happened was the environment was a little bit slick because it was raining, and there was a big rig tractor trailer semi truck going down the road, and it was a student plus an instructor, and it was in one of these brand new trucks that's got sensors all over it, and the sensors tell you how fast you should be going for the environmental conditions, etc. There was a minivan traveling the opposite direction on the 2 or 3 lanes over.
Mhm.
The father of the minivan lost control because he was driving too fast for the road conditions, crossed the median, crossed a lane of traffic, and hit the truck driver head on.
Ouch.
One of the family members unfortunately died.
Mhm.
It was tragic. Tragic. That family, though, won, I think it was about $48 million.
How did they win $48 million for crossing over onto the wrong side of the street and hitting a?
I'm going to pull from my memory once again because this is something that I went over with my agents. Okay. Supposedly, when the attorneys got involved in the litigious event and they were doing the discovery phrase and the depositions and everything, and they seemed to believe, for whatever reason, that one of the sensors had malfunctioned on the exterior of the semi, which feeds a computer and tells the driver what speed they should be going for the road
The
conditions.
driver was going too fast.
That's what they said, but the driver was still going 10 miles an hour or below the speed limit.
Mhm.
And the prosecution basically made the argument that had they been going slower, then the reaction time would have been greater, and the student driver would have been able to move the truck out of the way of the oncoming traffic.
Oh my goodness. That's crazy.
So people ask me all the time why their insurance rates go up. And I don't want to minimize the emotional value or the fact that a family member is deceased because I mean, dude, if it was my family, I'd one of my kids or something, I mean, we would I mean, I don't know what I'd do. Okay. I don't know. But when it goes to court and you're being judged by a jury of your 12, it's not often about the actual facts. It's about who's got the biggest deep pockets. And because that family lost a loved one and the insurance company's got the money, they ruled that there's negligence on behalf of the trucking company. And so they awarded that amount of money to the family.
Wow.
And so, people don't often, until you're in a lawsuit, Diedrich, a lot of people don't understand all the moving parts, the variables that are involved when you get served papers. Okay. And I don't know about you, but until I became an insurance agent, I never once read my insurance policy. Have you read yours?
No, I mean, I know you, and I hope that I can trust you.
I hope you do too. But that's why all this resonates, and I keep going back to this. I don't like how they've commoditized insurance. The problem is are you talking to an agent? Do they know you? Do they know your family? Where you live? What's the crime rate in your area? What's the distracted driving rate in your area? What are they? They don't know any of that stuff. So
Yeah.
how do they know what coverages to recommend?
Yeah.
What
Minimum,
phase are you in your life?
minimum coverage may not be the best coverage because it's not specific to what their needs are.
I have walked in a home that is worth over $1 million, and that client on his automobile policy only had $50,000 in liability on his autos.
Wow.
Who does that?
No, somebody who wants a second lien on their home.
Well, I don't fault the client though, because the client goes to the agent because the agent's supposed to be the professional. The agent's the one who's supposed to make the recommendation. The agent is the one who's supposed to be out looking at their home and not just doing a digital drive-by on Google to see where they live. Now, there are two other avenues of business insurance that I'd like to tell the audience. First of all, Diedrich, this one does revolve a little bit about property. Okay, it's business income loss, and this is what puts a lot of businesses out of business when they actually have a claim. And let me explain. Diedrich, you own a retail store. You sell men's clothing. You've been in business for 15, 20 years. You've built up a beautiful client base, but unfortunately, a big tornado came through here and knocked out your business and several others. It's going to take 12 months to rebuild your retail store.
Wow.
What are you going to do? What about, what are you going to do for money, income?
Sell online.
You better get on Amazon, brother. So
what's the solution though?
Okay, so that's where business income comes in. It's called, and I'm gonna nerd out here. Okay, it's business income and extra expense. What does it do? Why do you need it? Why is it important?
Mhm.
Okay, first of all, why is it important? Well, first of all, the extra expense component, Diedrich, we will go out and try to find a temporary location so that you could reopen at a temporary location, and we will pay all extra expenses for your computers, your point of sale system, to overnight you inventory, all these extra expenses that you incur. We're going to pay it. We're going to pay it to get you up and running. Now, the importance of that is number one, you want to keep paying payroll. You want to keep your good employees, your management team.
Right.
You want to keep your clients.
Mhm.
What happens if you had to wait 12 months? Your clients are shopping somewhere else, man.
You'd have to reopen like all new business.
You started over from scratch.
Mhm.
Your employees are gone. Most of your client base is gone. And what happened to your income for your family? Now, even though there's still a furlough process or a layout process, let me define that, is we still got to find a building to put you in, even temporarily. It may take a month, may take 2 months. You're still not earning an income. You still don't have payroll to pay your employees. So you need to check with your insurance agent to make sure you have these coverage forms on your policy. But a lot of policies for a certain amount of time will pay for a certain amount of payroll to
Mhm.
retain your employees. And to the owner, they will pay your net profits. Remember, people, net profit is assets minus liabilities equals net. And the reason why do they pay you net and not gross? Well, if you don't have a building, you're not paying an electrical bill, right?
Mhm.
You're not paying a gas bill. You're not paying rent.
Right. So they're taking away all of the all of the things.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Our duty as insurance agents is to indemnify people, to put them in the state of being that they were as close as we can before the incident,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
You can't profit from it or that's insurance fraud. So we're going to supplement your net loss of income. We're going to help you with your payroll, retain your employees, set you up at a temporary location, and help you retain your clients. And then we're going to help you move back once we rebuild your building.
Nice.
Now, that you have to be careful because I see a lot of policies that don't have this coverage or they have stipulations on the coverage to where they only cover X amount of dollars. Okay.
Mhm.
And for that coverage to be triggered, Diedrich, there has to be a direct physical loss or damage to the building, right?
Right.
Let me ask you this.
I have to own the building.
Oh, yeah. Well, it depends on their lease agreement and contractual liabilities and other things, and that's where you need to get with your insurance agent. But there are other things that can trigger it. Let me ask you this: what about the ice storm?
Oh,
People
yeah.
had no.
There's tons of people. Yeah, couldn't even take anything but cash.
Yeah, but let me ask you this: if you had to shut down because you had no power, there's no damage to the building. What about your loss of income then?
So that does that cover is that covered also?
Not in the standard policy.
No?
And
What about
here's
pandemic I mean, was there anybody covered because of being having to be shut down because of the pandemic?
oh, hang on now you're opening up a can of worms. I've got to keep on this ice storm first.
Yeah.
So, but let me go back to the ice storm, and then I will answer your pandemic question. Okay. So, as far as the ice storm is concerned, a good agent will properly endorse an insurance policy for when there's no damage to the building, but there's a utility failure. There's no power, there's no communication or internet.
Mhm.
Okay, no water. What happens if somebody hit a water main and you have to get shut off because there's no water going into the restaurant and the restaurant has to shut down because you don't have any water? Can't cook anything,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
So a good insurance policy will have some sort of utility failure in there, so that will trigger business income. Do you see how there are layers upon layers as we peel back this onion that as a business owner nobody ever thinks about? And that's why I look at case studies. Where are we paying our claims, Diedrich?
So,
And that's
let me
what's
ask you real
important
quick.
to
Do you believe
communicate that.
sorry, I'm interrupting you, but
No, that's fine.
do you believe that someone can be insurance poor?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've
Because
seen it.
on your end, you want them to be as insured as possible, but on our end, on the consumer end, we say, "Wow, I feel so insurance poor right now."
Let me go back to something. Remember we were talking about the homeowner's liability, and I said the average cost between 100,000 and $500,000 on the homeowner's policy is maybe 20 to 40 bucks a year.
Right.
That when you break it down, take $40, divide it by 12, that is not a huge increase on your monthly payment. Just don't buy a cup of coffee, that 1 month. Okay. And you've increased your liability threshold by 400,000. You would be surprised about how little some of these coverages will cost a client. Now, when I talk about to somebody and say, "Well, good golly gosh, man, I just feel insurance poor." I've ran into certain circumstances to where an agent has overinsured them in respects to how much would it really cost to rebuild that building.
Right. Right.
They've got it insured at $1 million, but it would only take $750,000 to rebuild it. Or this client doesn't have the same amount of inventory in their shop because they have streamlined their workflow like Dell computers with their just-in-time inventory.
Right.
So now their insurance policy hasn't been reviewed for 10 years by their insurance agent, and they still have coverage for a vast amount of inventory that's not even in the stock anymore. So yeah, I run into that all the time. But most of the time when somebody says, "Van, I'm insurance poor," is because they're improperly covered to begin with
Mm.
because they haven't had an appropriate review and they haven't had anybody shop their insurance out. They haven't had anybody explain it to them, and they have stuff that they quite frankly don't need.
Right. Right.
So that's yeah, I agree with you. I do generally run into that. I've run into that several times. We saved a contractor $13,000, Diedrich. $13,000. They hadn't had a review in 10 years.
Is that
and they
because
were
of
insured.
tools or equipment that was insured that they didn't have anymore, or
Oh, it was just everything from the market that they were in, that they had been in business for a long time, that they qualified for some experience credits, one could say. And plus, the market that they were in didn't specialize in the business industry they were in,
mm, makes
you
sense.
know?
Yeah.
And so that one had a lot of moving factors, but they were, you know what? They were insurance poor because they were with the wrong company.
Mhm.
They were classified incorrectly. They had insurance on things they didn't have. They even had insurance on some vehicles they had gotten rid of.
Wow.